Welcome to Faith Works Live. Here's your host, Rebecca Haney.
It's a wonderful day to celebrate life and to live free. Breathing the fresh air in the fine state of Iowa. Glad you're with us on FaithWorks Live. Rebecca Haney is my name. Welcome. Today is the day the Lord has made, and we're specifically going to celebrate life. Why? Because it's so awesome. It's so beautiful. We love birthdays. I have one that's coming up. We won't talk about which one, but it's just one of those things that it makes you remember all the good, how good God has been throughout life, and the fact that each and every day that He gives us is a gift, and each and every person that is here on this planet is not here by accident. I'm talking about you. You're here for a purpose, for such a time as this. And that is true for each and every person that you meet. As my pal C.S. Lewis wrote, you never meet a mere mortal. That every single person that you're meeting, that you're interacting with, maybe is driving too slow in the left lane, or is helping you check your groceries, or you look into their faces when you wake them up in the morning. They are eternal. They are eternal, and we get to invest in eternity every time we smile at them, we shake their hand, we say hello, we tell them about Jesus, we tell them we love them. So that's my approach around here, and that means we focus on life, on protecting everybody's life. Everyone deserves that equal protection. Unfortunately, there are a lot of lies and a lot of other theories out here in this world, and we unabashedly confront those lies. And what we hear a lot from our pals in Democratic leadership lately, specifically, not to immediately get political, but hold on, because I'm going to. We have to confront the lie that's out there that some lives are worth protecting and others are not. So what I've heard pretty boldly are people speaking out, unfortunately, and trying to couch what we know, is detrimental to life, things like abortion, in very friendly terms. And there have been no limits that I can see on behalf of, let's just take, for example, our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, very pro-abortion. And here's, for example, just a latest example, quick 30 seconds in her own words, that she promotes, or she would brook no restrictions on abortion. When she is asked specifically, hey, at what point do we limit this? Her take is, well, I'll let you hear it.
What is it that you believe? I mean, what week of pregnancy should abortion access be cut off?
We need to restore the protections of Roe versus Wade. We're not trying to do something new.
Well, that was nebulous because it was about viability, which could be anywhere between 20 to 24 weeks. And
so no. Let me be very clear.
The Women's Health Protection Act that the White House also endorsed.
Let me be very clear. From day one, the president has been clear. I have been clear. We need to put back the protections that are in Roe v. Wade into law. Since the Supreme Court took it, Congress has the power and ability to pass legislation to put those protections back in law, and Joe Biden will sign that bill. So that is what we want.
So in her own words, she says she just reasserts the talking point. When pressed, go back to the talking point. And this discussion about Roe v. Wade, I think that's part of the normalization of abortion in our culture. People look to that and they say, oh, it's a woman's right. It's just Roe v. Wade. It's just normal. And it's I think a shifting tactic to say, well, what limits does that really mean? What are we really talking about here? Let's just be honest and put it all cards on the table. And I think it's right for us to confront the extremism that we see, not only so that we can point the finger and say, that's ridiculous, no civilized culture should permit that, but also so that we can come up with better alternatives and be persuasively pro-life. And to that end, I am honored to have on our airwaves Emily Osment. She's with Susan B. Anthony's Pro-Life America organization. And I've already discovered that we're like best friends. I didn't even know that, but I do now. Emily, it's great to have you with us.
It's really nice to be here. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And wow, what a great way to be introed and open in persuasively pro-life. That is exactly what we're doing right now in this post-Roe America. And I think you're right. I think that we are seeing just such a shifting of messaging and kind of what I call cloak and dagger politics, in which, when pressed, and asked, what limits or what boundaries would you put on abortion at any time? It's really shocking to hear that they won't list a single one. And why is that? It's intentional, because everything they say is intentional and written out, like you said, in talking points. So it is quite shocking to see that they're not even able to do that. Now, think back to the 1990s for those of us that remember, there were Democrats, and especially the Clinton era, they would say, at least they would say, safe, legal, rare abortions. Now, for those of us that are pro-life, we know that the abortion is never safe for the child, but they would at least point to that, the Democrats, and then have limitations that they would say. That is not happening today. And I have been really shocked in the last few months, because I have been looking, I am in search of someone that will list a single limit in the Democratic Party, and we're just not seeing it. Think back, maybe your audience will remember just a few weeks ago, we had a situation with Robert F. Kennedy. So RFK Jr., he's being interviewed by an NBC reporter. And she asked, would you support any type of national limit on abortion to save lives? And he said, well, yes, actually, pointedly, I would say abortion should be limited after, 12 to 15 weeks after that first trimester. And she asked him again. He repeated himself multiple times. But what ended up happening was the very next day, he got slapped down by those Democratic consultants. And they said, you better correct this. You better not say any particular limit. And so we saw a statement and a release that rolled all of that back and said, oh, no. It's between a woman and her doctor, which is code for no limits whatsoever.
And that's, again, one of the shocking turns that we've seen as far as the extremities, the lengths to which particularly the Democrats will go to say absolutely no limits whatsoever. That is a marked turn, as you mentioned, from the Clinton era. It's a turn from even just a decade ago. It didn't always used to be this extreme, although we understand. I would just say the true colors are coming out, because if you do believe, just taking the logical argument to its conclusion, if you believe that every life is worth protecting, then there isn't, as you said, such a thing as a safe abortion. It should not be legal. That would just be logical, right? If we're talking about a baby, that baby's life is worth protecting. If there's nothing wrong with abortion, then why should there be any limits on it whatsoever? And so just those logical extremes, those are the ends of the spectrum that we're working with. And then there's a lot of Americans that have been somewhere in the middle, as far as I know. Maybe you would probably know the latest opinions and things, as far as national surveys go. But there's that, I guess at least people are being honest. I'll give Kamala points for honesty, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, she's not really coming out and saying it. When pressed, she doesn't want to say anything. And the reason why is she can read a poll just like any of us.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, and what you'll hear from the mainstream media, which are overwhelmingly pro-abortion. I mean, the mainstream media today, they're just gatekeepers for the Democratic Party. They're just an additional, third thing to get earned media for them. But they are gatekeepers, and they will not, press them very often. So if you see them pressed on this, that is really remarkable, because they know that they're not going to give a single specific limit that they would put on abortion. I will say this, though. The president of SBA, I mean, this is how far we've come. She used to work with a Democrat pro-lifer on the Hill, and they used to have or allow diversity of thought on this issue. That is no more. I mean, you really can't be a pro-life Democrat on the Hill at all. I think it was Bernie Sanders who said there's no room for that in this party anymore. But I mean, we can read the polls, and the thing is, yes, it's true. After 50 years of Roe v. Wade, the majority of Americans say that they want some sort of abortion in the country. But the shining light for pro-lifers is that of those Americans, the overwhelming majority, I mean, 7 in 10, every time we look at these polls, 7 in 10 in this year alone say that they want significant limits on abortion. So there is a real opportunity for us to build now a culture of life, because we haven't had that with Roe v. Wade.
Right. And that's an oft overlooked part of this discussion. Lots of times people look at polls and say, see, this is what we have to go by. People don't want limits on abortion, or they do, or it's at this gestational development stage, or this one. And overlooking that, I think if we get stuck in the weeds of that strategy, there's a time and place for that, seriously. But the overarching vision has to be cast. And that's what I've been looking for when we do these presidential town halls and things like that, because we're, blessed to be in Iowa, and we get to, fill out our dance card and trip over presidential candidates this time of year. But it's one of those things that I'm looking for, that overarching vision from someone that's willing to protect all life. And then they'll look at different strategies as to the most effective way to do that. But as you said, I mean, the media is not pulling any punches when it comes to this question. They are willing to press Republican candidates specifically on, they'll start asking about, would you support the 6-week bill, a heartbeat bill, any exceptions? They want to get way down in the weeds because they think that helps serve their political purposes. And it is interesting to start seeing Democrats being pressed in this same way, people on the other side of the aisle. And when that happens, the extreme nature of their position does come out. And I've heard that over and over again. I laughed a few weeks ago when it was Jen Psaki that said, no Democrat really believes that. And it was, I was in the CNN town hall with Mike Pence and Dana Bash, and he talked about how extreme Democrats are on abortion. And Dana was like, no, Joe Biden doesn't really believe that. Democrats don't really believe in abortion without limits on demand. And I think it was a couple of weeks later, the DeSantis campaign had something similar. Ron DeSantis said, oh, here's a full 5 minutes of Democrats in positions of power saying they don't support any limits on abortion. So it's a fact. And you're right that when that is brought to light, because they do try to couch it, when that is brought to light, the American people understand how truly distasteful, how truly immoral that is.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you just gave two great examples of two media personalities. Of course, Jen Psaki was former press secretary. Now, all of a sudden, NBC, no conflict of interest there.
Funny how that works.
But yeah, I mean, so they're just, carrying the water for them, and they're not pressing them. Or if they'll press the Republicans all day long. I mean, your audience knows this. As pro-lifers, we have to defend every single thing. We're always asked about everything. And that's good. We should absolutely defend life. We should stick up for our beliefs and serve moms and save children and know all of these things. But when the other side gets asked with any specificity to clarify their stance, they just crumble like a house of cards because they so rarely get asked on this.
Yeah. And I would love to, let's do this. Let's take a break. Because my producer likes it when I stay on the time. I feel you, Ron. Thanks to Ron Carlson for making us sound good, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron, we appreciate you. Emily Osment is our special guest today. She is with Susan B. Anthony. I say it like I'm one of the cool kids when I just say, the acronym, but it's Susan B. Anthony's Pro-Life America organization. And you know them. You know the great work that they do on behalf of life, tirelessly day in and day out. And we'll talk more about what it takes to defend life. In particular, we've talked about politics, but that's an important area where decisions get made. We can also broaden this to daily life. How can we be persuasively pro-life in the face of open pro-abortion, quote unquote, vision from the other side? They've got a vision for the country, right? No limits whatsoever, anytime up until the point of birth. Pretty honest about that one, Prust. So how can we, as people of God specifically, but anyone listening to this conversation who believes in the beauty of life, the uniqueness of life, the value, inherent dignity of life, how can we protect that for each and every person? We will talk about that and how to be effective in it when we return with Emily. You're listening to FaithWorks Live.
Your beacon, Iowa's Hope 940.
So glad you're with us on this day where we celebrate life. We talk about protecting life here on FaithWorks Live. It's what we truly believe. But how do we live that out? Glad you asked. We're all about it. And Emily Osment is our special guest today from SBA's Pro-Life America. And she lives just outside of DC, where the magic happens, in the belly of the beast. That's what we call it around here. And she is tirelessly advocating for life. Emily, you mentioned that some of your personal experience makes you passionate about life. Do you want to share just a little bit about why this matters to you?
Yeah, I look back over my life and there's just been so many touch points where, the truth of it is, it just really points, the truth of my life and my children's life really points to being pro-life and really points to saving lives and serving moms. I grew up as a missionary kid in Taiwan, and I was there for about a little bit over 16 years. It was a really interesting time to grow up there, but I had a front row view of China and the abortion embracing country that it is.
Yeah.
And it really, imprinted on my mind just the fact that depending upon who the society viewed as valuable, those that weren't viewed as valuable, those were the ones that were targeted for abortion. Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up, the culture really valued sons, over daughters. There was the one-child policy at the time as well, but even still, and even in Taiwan, it wasn't as stringent as China. But still, little girls were often targeted for abortions, and in China, in fact, they had to outlaw ultrasounds so that they would not target their daughters for abortions. And then, of course, anyone that had any slight defect or suspect that they had a defect at all physically, or anything, then they would also be targeted for abortion. So that never left my mind. That really showed me, gosh, these vulnerable children, just because they don't meet some standard of perfection or happen to be a girl, or happen to have a physical deformity, they are not allowed to be given life.
Yeah. And the fact that is not only encouraged, it's established governmentally through policy, but it was that talking over and over again, the re-education, the brainwashing. How could a mother not care about her own daughter? How could that be that you would have that? It's just a completely backwards way of thinking. And yet here we are, civilized countries that are purported to have these high levels of philosophical understanding of freedom, and yet we use our freedom to hurt others. We use it's just so backwards. And that's one of the reasons I pray for my country. I pray globally that we would have this reawakening of understanding that every person is made in the image of God, that we can see others the way that Jesus sees them, that's our place to speak into the darkness, to speak into the people that are so confused that they don't understand. Jesus said he looks at the crowds like sheep without a shepherd. And sometimes I look around my country, I look around my land, and I think, my goodness, we're so lost. And Lord, help us shine that light towards others. That is, I believe, the place of the church. And if we're living out our pro-life, if we're living out how much we care about others, even if there are, ideologically, they believe they're our enemies, we can show our love towards our enemies, towards the vulnerable, towards those who need us most, including moms and babies. So rabbit trail successfully brought back to the conversation. Thanks, Emily, for your grace on that.
I have to add one more thing to this,
Sure.
because I think you know this, but maybe some in the audience don't. There's this misunderstanding that the Democrats' position on abortion, that this is normal around the globe. It's not normal. In fact, only the U.S., we're only one of 7 countries in the world that allow abortions after 20 weeks.
Yeah.
Think about that. 1 of 7.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we're talking about company of things like China and North Korea.
Right. We're right alongside human rights abusers like China and North Korea. That is something that once you tell somebody that, I guarantee most don't know that. Yeah. And when they find it out, it really starts to reframe, our position on this.
Yeah. And it's true. And I think since we're talking about framing, I would love to get your thoughts on successful ways, like I said, that we can be persuasively pro-life. There's lots of people who are maybe, consider themselves very nice, great, salt of the earth folks. They don't like the conflict. So maybe we don't bring it up because we think it's a sensitive issue. I think that's just, that is out that's out the door. Like, this conversation has been brought up to full color. It's in front of everybody's minds. So we need to be willing to and courageous enough to speak into this, to defend life. And how can we do this best? I will say I've seen some good examples, like on the campaign trail lately. I've seen some not so good examples. Donald Trump, I give him an F here in his recent discussion that said, we shouldn't, it's terrible to protect. I don't have a good Trump impression, but he said, it's terrible what Ron DeSantis did to protect babies at 6 weeks. And I'm doing a double take, like, what on earth? I want to introduce you to like 2016 Trump, because I remember him. I liked him. What happened with that? Anyway, not to rag on him specifically, but that was a big fail. So how can we be more effective in these conversations, whether it's people running for office or just you and I having conversations with our neighbors about life?
Well, I think we have to do exactly what you said. We need to stop putting, especially as Christians, we need to stop putting pro-life in the politics box and say, that's over here. I'm not going to talk about that. And I'll give you a couple of anecdotes that I've heard recently that really just cemented this for me. In fact, I think you might have met her, Rebecca. One of the former Planned Parenthood staffers, she was speaking recently in Iowa, and she and I were talking while there, and she said, I sat in church in the pews every Sunday, and I was aiding and abetting abortions every day for my job, that she went in. And she's like, and my pastor never once talked about pro-life, not at all. Wow. And she said, I wasn't ever convicted on this. I never heard anything. And I think that is happening. I think that as Christians, we do say, this is a political issue. I don't want to cause any tension. And I just don't want to get involved. In fact, I have a friend who works at a pregnancy resource center in Florida, and she said they would go to the churches and say, hey, can you help us connect with moms that are in need of help, that need services, that need, with unplanned pregnancies, that need this. And they said, well, this is a woman's issue. We don't really want to talk about it as a man from the pulpit. And I'm just thinking, gosh, you can't believe that lie.
Yeah.
You cannot believe that lie. And you've got to really understand that moms need help. And I think my life is a good example. I was a single mom for over a decade. I had 2 unplanned pregnancies by the age of 22. And for me, I have an open adoption with my son. And I also gave life to my daughter. And, it was really hard. It was very hard. I was very poor. And I didn't think that there was a place for me in church at that time. And there was a woman who said, you know what, I'd like to do a single mom's Bible study. How would you like to be a part of that? And it carved a place for me and other single moms to really come back to church, because we hadn't been for a long time. And I just think, what a great ministry opportunity. If we're talking pro-life, serve the mother. That is the best way when you see a mom with an unplanned pregnancy, to connect with her, to serve her. And I know oftentimes we think, well, she doesn't want to talk to me. We might be going through something really difficult, but I promise you, they want to hear from you. They want that help. And if you can find strong ways to connect, she'll remember it forever. And it will change not only her life, but the life of her kids, like it did mine.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And amen to that. I know our friends at Embrace Grace, we've talked about that, which is a great curriculum. It's a program that you can take to your church. And there are, a few others like it, where you can actually build in these principles to help connect with moms to meet their needs, single moms or young moms. And they need to feel like the church's doors are open. They need to feel like there's a family for them. Lots of times in that circumstances, I'm sure what's most important is connection, relationships, support. And what is it that when women are pushed towards the abortion clinics, what do they say? I wish I had support. Maybe it was financial, maybe it was emotional. They thought they'd be all alone. They were ashamed. And that shoves them, that shame drives people into greater and greater sin. That's what the enemy's so good at doing. But what we can do as the people of God, what if the church was the most open place? What if a woman knew that she could get help there, that there were people who cared about her and her baby, her family, cared about her future? There at any church, and look around your city and drive down the block and just see, what if that church and that church, what if we all became these places of shining light and support and love? And people knew, agree or disagree with my life choices. It doesn't matter where I am in life. These people are going to who love me. They're going to tell me the truth. They're going to help me. I'm not alone. That, I think, would change the face of life in America on this issue and on many others.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think something that we don't know oftentimes is that studies show that women who are post-abortive that got abortion said, I would have kept my child if it had not been for financial and or emotional stressors on my life. So we really have an opportunity to step in and be something for this woman and her child.
Oh, excellent. Emily, I agree. And that's something wholeheartedly that we can, it's a perfect place to wrap up our discussion today. Although I hope it won't be the last. You're welcome on our airwaves anytime.
Absolutely.
And, I'm sure there will be plenty of fodder. We've got another debate upcoming. So my guess is that there's going to be stuff to analyze there. Good, bad, and ugly. Anyway, thank you so much for your tireless work for life and for you and the whole team over at SBA. God bless.
God bless you too.
And if you are passionate about life and pro-life, we'd love to hear from you, love to connect, get involved. Our friends over at Pulse Life Advocates have some great resources to get you all brushed up on the current facts and figures about abortion and just good conversation starters too. So that's a great place to go. And if you'd like to ask some of those questions and you said, hey, I've had this conversation, I don't really know how to answer this person. Well, hey, drop us a line and maybe we can help. Let's talk it out together. Thanks for getting involved. Thank you for loving life, because we have a mission here at FaithWorks Live every single day for an audience of one. We fear God, we serve people, and we live free. Let's go be about it. Thanks for listening.